Hey, this is Mark. Today is Friday, June 24th. I thought we'd go over the news together like we do every day. I've got three papers in front of me today: the Wall Street Journal, USA Today, which is not normally the best paper, but we're going to go through it anyway. We'll do that first, and I'm going to try to make this quick for you, but give you the main thing. Of course, you know that Roe v. Wade was overturned. It's a big deal because it was a law that kind of changed the parameters of a way of life in America years ago. It was big in the 70s when it passed, and now in this time period, which seems so much like the 70s, with it being turned back, it kind of brings us back to the disco age and before. It's just crazy how the 70s has totally repeated itself, and it's amazing the craziness in the world in terms of crime with mass shootings. In the past, we had serial killings and people killing their families. It's just terrible. Let's take a look at what we have in the news. Still some problems in Uvalde. Very suspicious things going on there. And then also in Miami, they are getting $1 billion settlement. That seems to me crazy and, again, very suspicious. Number one, why did they tear down the evidence of what could have been the possible problem in Miami with that building collapse? The people that are getting the money still want to have the answers of why it collapsed. They lost family members and so forth. Obviously, there's something very suspicious there that they would destroy the evidence. Now, from what I understand, in Uvalde, with the shooting, they want to remove the building immediately, tear it down. What that does is tear down evidence. It's a crime scene. Why would they tear it down so quickly? They're hiding something, obviously. Let's see. In New York City, you now can carry a gun. But the mayor of New York has said, do not carry a gun now because we're going back to the Second Circuit Court to fight this. We don't want you carrying guns. If you have a home gun permit, fine, but don't carry it. You will be arrested. In some other news, there was a swimmer that dove into a pool, and apparently she passed out. She was doing a performance, and her coach dove in. This was the second time that this coach had to save her during a competition, which kind of makes it a little suspicious to me in terms of press and gathering press, but let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Let's see. G7 leaders have been meeting. The EU makes Ukraine a candidate for membership. There should be no question we should be treating them as members already. Today I've heard a lot of talk about everybody's expecting a truce, a settlement between Russia and Ukraine. I don't think that's going to happen. I'm betting against it. I'm betting that the market's going to be down next week big. And I think that all these hopeful comments about Ukraine settling with Russia is not accurate at all. However, the commodity prices have come down. Corn, wheat, they've all come down. It seems like inflation, at least apparently according to markets, has peaked. If that's the case, then we could have a market, take off because interest rates might stabilize and things can kind of get back to normal. Let's see now. North Carolina has a voter ID law, and that's probably going to go to the Supreme Court. Biden's plan for Title IX is going to change what President Trump did. I think President Trump made it a little bit more difficult to accuse someone and convict them on accusation. Biden is changing that back, giving more power to the accuser on campus. It's a very complex discussion. Of course, nobody wants their child attacked and hurt, but it did seem like, for instance, the Duke lacrosse accusations, which turned out to be false. They convicted every one of those young men for years in the press And the fact of the matter is they were completely innocent. Let's see. Oh, Alexa can now supposedly imitate a dead person's voice. Hopefully, if you're a child or you're a wife, you've recorded your loved one's voice. Do you want Alexa to actually do an imitation of someone's voice? Personally, I don't want that, but maybe you do. Unemployment filings were down last week. United's cutting 50 flights in Newark. They have some construction going on in Newark, so that's why they're cutting it. Here's an interesting story. The BP CEO came out as being gay, and apparently, I never heard it in the news, and I follow news pretty substantially, but this guy, John Brown, resigned as the CEO of BP in 2007 after being outed as a gay man in a British tabloid. He should have just said, yeah, I'm gay. What do you care? Just stay in your job and just deal with it. It's a lot easier, though, if you're just honest with people to begin with. I feel bad for these wives that think they're in love and they're really not. Let's do this 50 states thing, and then I think we'll call it for the day, even though there's so much more news. But I just think that I should do a brief news thing today. Let's see. In Alaska, the Alaska Division of Elections has determined State Representative David Eastman is eligible to run for re-election amid challenges over his affiliation with the far-right Oath Keepers. The legislature in Arizona, the legislature approved a bipartisan $18 billion spending plan Thursday that will make substantial investments in public schools, build new highways and border walls, give state workers raises, and pay long-term debts. In Arkansas, a judge on Thursday rejected a request to allow new genetic testing of crime scene evidence from brutal killing of 3 boys nearly 30 years ago. That seems weird. A judge on Thursday rejected a request to allow new genetic testing. Again, why do they hide it? Don't you think that's important to find out? In California, the city board has voted to rescind a previous decision to cover up a George Washington campus mural. Oh, they're waking up. You idiots who created these problems of going woke have finally decided that we're after you. We're going to get you because you don't have the rights to start changing history. Colorado Secretary of State has appointed a supervisor to monitor Tuesday's primary election in a third county after some voters received faulty ballots. In Connecticut, Killingly, for the first time in a quarter century, town workers will be running Killingly's wastewater treatment plant and its associated systems as of next month. That's good. In Delaware, the daughter of a state auditor, Kathy McGinnis, testified Wednesday at his mother's criminal corruption trial, saying she earned her pay for a part-time job in the auditor's office in 2020, but was treated poorly by other staffers. Big deal. You kidding me? You get a job, somebody doesn't like you, you're going to treat you like crap. Throw that one out. In District of Columbia, Washington, D.C., after a 2-year hiatus, the Smithsonian Folklife Festival has been returned to the National Mall and wrap up July 4th. That should be fun. It's hot as hell out there. In Florida, Fort Lauderdale, supermarket chain Publix is not offering the COVID-19 vaccine to children younger than 5, but has not explained its decision. Florida Surgeon General Joseph Ladapo has recommended against vaccinating healthy children, despite U.S. Centers for Disease Control. If you understand what Publix is the nicest supermarket in Washington. It's not as good as some of the northern East Coast supermarkets like Wegmans, which is my favorite, but it is a good supermarket. So they're taking a political stance just the way Disney did, but in favor of a more conservative approach. Georgia, St. Catherine's Island. Wildfires sparked by lightning have scorched hundreds of acres on the unspoiled island. That's a National Historic Landmark. I will be visiting there. In Idaho, the state's 44 countries will receive a combined $36 million under a program intended to offset the loss of property taxes on federally managed land within Idaho. That's what the U.S. Department of Interior said yesterday. Illinois, Chicago, one of the most corrupt places, but one of the best educations in public schools ever. A federal judge sentenced a man to nearly 3 years in prison Wednesday after he pleaded guilty to setting a police SUV on fire in the city while wearing a Joker mask during widespread May 2020 protests. Thank God. You got to send these people away, and they are Antifa. They are terrorists. Yarmouth. Crews recovered the body of a man who was buried under piles of grain and debris from a collapsed grain silo Wednesday. That's in Iowa. If you ever saw those grain things, these big silos, number one, you never want to get trapped under the grain because you're going to suffocate. But number two, they are highly explosive. When the grain falls, the dust fills up and they could explode. How do I know that? My old man used to inspect them for the insurance company, Marcia McClellan, whatever. In Kansas, in Topeka, Kansas, child care staff would be in line for thousands in bonus pay under initiative Governor Laura Kelly announced Tuesday. Man, these women governors just give everything away. All right, whatever. In Kentucky, ground was broken Wednesday for construction on the first phase of planned Ohio River Bridge that will extend Interstate 69. Great. I'm always up for a good 69 interstate. In Louisiana, the owner of 7 nursing homes who sent more than 800 residents to a crowded, ill-equipped warehouse to ride out Hurricane Ida was arrested Wednesday on fraud and cruelty charges over the squalid conditions. So the guy sent these people to a warehouse to ride out the hurricane. And I don't know if these people died. I don't think so. He might have saved some lives. But I guess they're mad at him because he's got a sloppy place. In Portland, Maine, the state unnecessarily institutionalizes youth with mental health and developmental disabilities because of lack of community-based services. The U.S. Department of Justice said Wednesday, declaring a violation of the American with Disabilities Act. Hey, this is a nationwide, worldwide problem. We're not caring enough about the mental ill. We don't consider it a cost of society that we have to manage. Everywhere you go in the world, you're going to find homeless people. We have to take this challenge and fix it. Let's see. Massachusetts. No, we're up here. Maryland. In Salisbury, friends, family, dignitaries, and more than 1,000 officers from multiple states attended the funeral Tuesday for a sheriff's deputy fatally shot last week as he tried to arrest a fugitive. Sad. In Massachusetts, a woman who says she descended from slaves portrayed in widely published historical photos owned by Harvard can sue the university for emotional distress, the state's highest court ruled Thursday. What? A woman who says she descended from slaves portrayed in widely published historical photos owned by Harvard can sue the university. That's ridiculous. Don't let her win this. Don't let her win it. So what? You have a descendant who's in a picture and you're going to sue? No. The state has agreed to, in Michigan, the state has agreed to destroy over 3 million dried blood spots taken from babies and kept in storage. A partial settlement in an ongoing lawsuit over digital age consent and privacy. I don't know. Those blood spots might be helpful. That's how we solve health problems. In Minnesota, Minneapolis, federal prosecutors asked a judge Wednesday to sentence a former police officer to 25 years for violating the rights of George Floyd, saying Derek Chauvin's actions were cold-blooded and needless. We all saw it on television. He didn't look like he was being very gentle with the guy. Mississippi, Lucedale. George County has agreed to a $2.75 million settlement in a federal lawsuit for the wrongful death of insulin-dependent inmate held in county jail and denied medication. That to me is murder. I'm a guy on medicine myself, and personally, I don't think that a guard that denies somebody medicine is doing anything except committing murder. Time to take a drink. In Missouri, civil rights activists sued the state Wednesday over a decades-old law that prohibits volunteers from offering ballot booth help to multiple voters who have physical disabilities or are unable to read or write. Okay. In Montana, the Helena Lewis and Clark National Forest has been added 108 acres south of York. Nice. I love Lewis and Clark. Didn't they have, who was that person? Pocahontas. They led them, I think. Yeah. Poco. Let's see. In Nebraska, a local meat packing company says it's donating tens of thousands of pounds of beef to families in war-torn Ukraine. I hope it's frozen. In Reno, Nevada, a Nevada Supreme Court ruling Thursday has set new precedent for managing groundwater in areas with severe drought, saying state plans can deviate from senior water rights doctrine. Ooh, nothing but trouble up there in Nevada with water. That's a bad place to be looking for water. In New Hampshire, Portsmouth, the next Thunder Over New Hampshire Air Show will be held. The Thunder Over New Hampshire Air Show will be held in September 2023 in conjunction with the city's 400th anniversary celebrations. My old home state, New Jersey. Thank God I don't live there anymore. In Atlantic City, the local government is urging its dominant industry to avoid a strike next month by paying casino workers more and hiring more of them. The place is dying anyway. They should knock down Atlantic City and just make it beach. Just all beach. Get rid of the casinos, nice hotels, just beach. Out with the gambling. New Mexico, Carlsbad. People of color, those living in poverty, elderly people, and children could be affected by air pollution tied to oil and gas at a higher rate than other groups in New Mexico, research shows. How is that the case? How is myself as a minority more susceptible to pollution from oil and gas? New Mexico is full of crap, okay? It used to be a nice state, very beautiful, but they completely destroyed the place. They've made natives there dependent on the government and ruined the whole place. It's just full of drugs right now. New York, New York. The city's iconic subway system will become more accessible to people with disabilities under terms of a settlement announced Wednesday. North Carolina. In Raleigh, transgender people born in the state may now correct the sex designation on their birth certificate without being required to undergo surgery after a consent judgment issued by a federal court. That's fine with me. Change your sex. Just you can't swim and race against people if you're born a man. That's it. Or born a woman, for that matter. North Dakota, Minot. Authorities say a man appeared in court Tuesday after local police seized 15,000 fentanyl pills and 80 grams of fentanyl powder with an estimated street value of $1 million. Guy's out $1 million. Good. Have him arrested. The University of Cincinnati announced it will soon offer 2 new classes and an open lab dedicated to cryptocurrency. This is in Ohio. The University of Cincinnati announced it will soon offer 2 new classes and an open lab dedicated to cryptocurrency. Buy crypto. Oklahoma City. The founders and former chief financial officers of Epic Charter Schools were arrested Thursday and are facing felony criminal charges alleging they diverted millions of taxpayer dollars. Put them in jail. Oregon. in Medford. A federal civil rights lawsuit alleges 2 police officers used excessive force against a man who was shot with a stun gun while standing in a creek where he was knocked unconscious. Didn't everybody ever tell you don't throw a toaster in the bathtub? Pennsylvania, in Carlisle, disinterred remains from grounds of a former federal boarding school do not match with the tombstone of a Native American boy, the U.S. Army said. Interesting. Someone switched the bones. Rhode Island. A 10-year campaign to enshrine the constitutional right to an education has failed in the legislature. In South Carolina, a former nursing director pleaded guilty Thursday to lying to federal agents about providing fake COVID-19 vaccination cards. South Dakota, Sioux Falls Division of Criminal Investigation Director David Natvig, who's running to replace his just-impeached former boss as the state attorney general, misled lawmakers about a meeting Jason Ravensborg had with a special agent, according to now retired agent. So they put the one guy in jail, and now the new guy who's replacing him and running against his position was caught lying. Do you think there might be some problems in the police, FBI, and with special agents? I don't like those guys. Tennessee, Nashville. The Department of Environmental and Conservation issued consumption advisories for fish on the Chatham, Center Hill, and Dale Hollow reserves. So they're telling, reservoirs. So they're telling you don't eat, you don't take the fish out because the fish clean the place. Getting back to Nashville, Tennessee. What about that explosion on Christmas morning? That's what I want to know about. So we got 3 things that are very suspicious. The Miami condo collapse, Uvalde, and the Nashville explosion. The triple play. Those are the things that we should be figuring out what happened. In Texas, Houston, an effort by officials to thank residents for taking part in the jury selection process has ended with a mistrial in a murder case after a defense attorney objected to statements that serving on a jury was a chance to provide justice. In Utah, the Utah Jazz are heeding fans' cries, bringing back the purple uniforms worn by the 1996 to 2014, with a few minor tweaks. In Vermont, a state that's full of heroin, Burlington, state-run COVID-19 testing sites are closing for good by Saturday. When will people admit that COVID was bullshit? Up in Vermont, you know what they have going on up there? Freaking drug addicts everywhere. Heroin addicts. And they use COVID-19 as this like big trouble when in fact people were dying of overdoses left and right. And they're worried about COVID-19. The Democrats are closing down COVID-19 because everybody knows that they use it as a fraud. Yeah, people died of COVID-19 and people got COVID-19. But you shouldn't have cut every service out there. You shouldn't tell people to stay home. You ruined the economy. Vermont. State-run COVID-19 test sites are closing for good by Saturday. I just said that, but I wanted to tell you again. Virginia. Ripplemead. 1 mine worker was killed and another injured in a cave inside a mine this week, officials said. That's a big story. Mine caves in, poor guy crushed to death. Imagine you got this much space, there's a stone on top of you, you can't move, you're crying, you want your mommy, and slowly you just can't breathe anymore. It's terrible. In Washington, a jury Wednesday awarded the Lummi Indian tribe $595,000 over the 2017 collapse of a net pen where Atlantic salmon were being raised. West Virginia, a Vietnam-era helicopter showcased in action movies including Die Hard crashed on a rural road Wednesday, killing all 6 people on board during an annual reunion for helicopter enthusiasts. That's sad. You know, the guy in Die Hard, Bruce Willis, is very sick. And that's sad. The second of two women who were sent to a state mental health facility as preteens after 2014 stabbing attack on a classmate that they claimed was to appease the horror character Slender Man is petitioning for her release. Wyoming, my favorite state. The state school superintendent is pushing to reject federal money that would require Wyoming to comply with non-discrimination policies. The Casper Star-Tribune reports. I believe half of the news that you hear. That's all I can say. The news is corrupt. But it's important that you get your local newspaper. Feel free to send it to me. You can send it to here to 2049 Edgewater Drive, Unit 6, Clearwater, New Jersey. Excuse me, Clearwater, Florida, 33755. They're still talking about packing guns in New York. Let's get this through quickly. Oh, Kyle Rittenhouse has his own game that's coming out, a video game. And what it is, you're going to be shooting these news turkeys. You know, people that lie with the news. That's the game. It's a video game coming out from Kyle Rittenhouse. All the proceeds go towards his lawsuit against news organizations. I'll probably support it. Let's see. New Yorkers has right. See this. Joe Biden's approval is down to 36%. Oh. De Blasio is now apologizing to the Jewish community because he was blaming them for spreading COVID. De Blasio, you're an idiot. Let's see. I think Donald Trump's reign has been... It's over. Here's a lady right here. She just keeps stealing. 96 bucks and still no bill for the booster. They call her the booster. She just keeps stealing from Target stores and elsewhere. That's a swimming story right there. Now on Broadway, I reported this yesterday, but now on Broadway, you can go in without a mask. All you actors, you liberals, you're a pain in the ass. I'm not going to theater. You're not getting my money because you acted like idiots. Let's see. This is a good story. Brad Pitt. Oh, wow, this guy's a handsome guy. He gets the women. And he's a big guy, too. Anyway, he had this French castle or estate, and I guess he heard a rumor that gold, millions of dollars of gold were buried on the land. And I love this story. He was digging up the land, but now he's given up, calling it fool's gold. There's a couple missing in the Atlantic. They left from Virginia. Some officers got shot. Some firemen, they're doing some big story on some fireman who's a heroin addict. I don't care if you're a professional baseball player, a fireman, or the President of the United States. If you're using drugs, if you choose to use drugs, if you give me the excuse like, oh, it's just growing up, it's just experiment, you're an idiot. Look at yourself. Look in the mirror. You look like shit. After years and years of doing drugs, and then you're going to go around telling people that, hey, it was just an experiment. Look at this guy. He had a great job. You know, firemen, they get the chicks. You blew it, pal. You blew it. Okay. You hear about this family that lied. He said that this kid was set on fire, but they were lying the whole time. America, the country of liars. There's a Elvis Presley movie out. I'm going to go see it. Tom Hanks is in it. Let's see. There's a lot of stories here which are pretty relevant across the country. We have a friend in our hiking group. They let out these felons, and then the felons are just going to go do it again. That's their nature. It's the woke community. These people who go to parties and they get really nice cocktails and they get cocked up. They're a bunch of idiots. Let's see. Juul, gone. That's the vaping thing. Out of here. Powell and others are saying that we got to have the unemployment rate go way up. So that's their goal. Let's get more unemployment. That'll solve inflation. Holy crows. Talk about idiots. You can't come up with something else? Let's see. China researchers claim to have patented a device that is capable of reading a man's mind and detecting when he is watching porn, according to a report. However, the device says it's impossible ever to read a woman's mind. I'm making that up. The prototype helmet is said to be able to detect the brain waves triggered by exposure to lewd content, according to South China Morning Post. I believe that. Absolutely. Let's see. Oh, it's a good story. So, we went heavy into the economic sanctions with Russia, and we drove the ruble way down, and I was actually thinking maybe I should buy some ruble. But anyway, the Russian ruble has rebounded from crippling economic sanctions imposed on Moscow following the invasion of Ukraine, and is now at its strongest in more than 7 years, making it the best performing currency in the world so far this year. The ruble traded at 53.75 to the US dollar on Thursday. Since the start of the year, the ruble has soared 40%. You would have made 40% on your money. So what else? Big game tomorrow night. The Tampa Bay Lightning is down 3-1, and they have a game here in Tampa, I believe. It could be their final game. Let's see. Or if it's not in Tampa, then somewhere else. Okay, that's it. I don't do the sports that much. Let's look at the Wall Street Journal. The U.S. and European economies slowed sharply in June as surging prices of energy and food weakened demand for other goods and services. We know that. Fed Chief Powell was pressed by lawmakers over how the central bank would manage trade-offs. We know that. Meta platforms, Netflix and PayPal are among the companies that will be classified as value stocks when index provider FTSE Russell rebalances its benchmarks at the close of trading Friday. Major U.S. stock index advances. McDonald's plans to make some big changes in decades to the franchising system that underpins its U.S. operations as it seeks to reinvigorate its base of restaurant owners. I think McDonald's is a pretty good thing. You know, it tastes good. They got to cut the salt. If they can do something to cut the salt, more people would eat there. A U.S. appeals court voted to throw out $1.9 billion judgment against Cisco, saying the judge in the original case should have disqualified himself after learning his wife owned the stock. Are you kidding me? They spent all that money on that court case only to find out that the wife owned a ton of stock. These people are cheaters, man. FedEx's revenue rose 8% in its fourth quarter as higher shipping rates and fuel surcharges offset a smaller volume of packages shipped. Hey man, I just went to the post office and sent out 2 t-shirts for people in my hiking group. It cost me $9. Next time they're not getting those t-shirts. And that's it. That's all we're going to do today. There's lots of news, but that's it. We're closing it down. Have a great weekend. There's always lots of news. Always lots and lots of news. Just get to the fact that there will always be news.